all good copy and messaging, it's only as good as the thinking behind it. Agency owners don't always understand that they're in a very crowded space. They think they are the only agency that does this thing, but they don't understand that they are one of tens, hundreds, thousands of agencies who look and feel quite similar. Once they have that realization that they need to do something different or say something different to give themselves an advantage, then it's a real game-changing moment for them.
Packaging design should seduce, inform, and even save the planet. I'm Hernan Braverman, and this is Branderman, the podcast where I talk with experts to uncover what it actually takes to make a positive impact on consumers, the market, and society. Warning: keep this podcast out of the reach of close-minded marketers and designers. Before the interview, let me introduce my design agency.
Brands with purpose. Human, agile, honest brands that leave no one indifferent. Beige creates and revitalizes brands to imagine and shape the future. Beige, the branding and packaging design agency for bold brands.
Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Roland Gurney, who runs Treacle, a team specializing in agency positioning, differentiation, and messaging. Treacle has worked with various agencies worldwide, from independent boutiques to major network names, and is on a mission to help agencies stand out and attract clients. In this episode, Roland explores the intricacies of crafting distinctive and compelling narratives for design agencies. He discusses common pitfalls agencies face, the importance of a well-defined target client, and introduces the 3D positioning model: desirable, distinctive, and defensible. Today with me, Roland Gurney. Each of us is a container of ideas, projects, and dreams. However, we can't read the label when we are inside the jar. Roland, what do you think your label says, or what would you like it to say?
So on the front, I think it would have to be something simple. I think it would say, I'm that guy who's weirdly obsessed with making agencies stand out and sound amazing. On the back, where I'd probably talk a bit more, it might say that I am the person that agencies go to when they want to find that unique, special thing about them. They want to find that story they can tell that makes them different in the market, and they want that proposition that cuts through and wins them clients. So it might need to be quite a big bottle, like a magnum of champagne or something.
Great. Roland, building a brand is like a journey. It starts with defining where we are and asking ourselves where we want to go. What was the path that led you from studying English language to becoming a design agency proposition specialist?
It's a very weird path. It's not something I've always done. This has been something I came to later in my life. For a long time, I was in music technology. I was a DJ. I was a producer. And then I started teaching in a creative college, teaching young people to make music. And then I moved into a scheme we have here in the UK called apprenticeships, which is helping young creative people get into work. And so part of my job was to find suitable places for the young people to work in creative industries. And so I spent a lot of my time looking at agencies because they were a good target. And after about 2 or 3 days of looking through agency websites, I realized it was hard to tell what some of them even did. And I'd always been into writing, and I come from a family of writers and authors. And I wanted to leave this job that I was doing. So, yeah, I slowly set up a side hustle, I suppose they call it, writing. And I thought agencies I like creative people, I like the creative industry. So agencies felt very exciting to me. And I felt there was an opportunity for somebody to help them say something a bit more interesting, because as agency people, we're creative and brilliant, but not always the best at selling ourselves. So yeah, I started Treacle as a one-man operation and slowly reached out to clients and agencies. I wrote 100 handwritten letters to agencies in London and sent them out. And that got me some really interesting meetings with some great agencies. And I did some work on some brilliant brands and learned very quickly the art of writing for brands and agencies themselves. And then more and more agencies were coming to me saying, you've done some great client work with us, but we just can't work on our own positioning. We can't really get our own messaging. So can you have a look? And then after a few years, I realized that nearly 2/3 of my clients were the agencies themselves now, not just partnering on client work. And that's when I thought there's a big market here, so I'm going to jump in and commit. So yeah, a wiggly path to doing this.
And what do you understand about positioning and copy for design agencies that agency owners don't understand?
I mean, it's hard because agency owners are brilliant at this stuff for their clients. So a lot of this work is what we all do for our clients. But I think, as you said in your opening question, it's really hard to read the label from inside the jar.
Yeah.
So the big problem that most agency founders, leaders have, they're just too close to the agency. They can't see it with fresh eyes anymore. They are too emotionally attached to the business. So they focus on things that are not maybe the main selling point for that agency. So they focus on things that are like the people, or, having nice work, or being very nice to work with, or open or transparent. And these are all brilliant, and you should be these things. But in the market, in the competitive market, they're not enough to really cut through and help an agency get hired above its competitors. Agency owners don't always understand that they're in a very crowded space. They think they are the only agency that does this thing, but they don't understand that they are one of tens, hundreds, thousands of agencies who look and feel quite similar. Once they have that realization that they need to do something different or say something different to give themselves an advantage, then it's a real game-changing moment for them. And so a lot of the work we've been doing over the last few years has been much more about building a narrative, a story, a strategic story you take to the market to help you stand out. A lot of the work we're doing is about building stories, but not fluffy stories, not just nice stories. These are things about how an agency solves a very specific client problem by building its own unique solution. And that's a really important piece of it. It has to be lived through. It can't just be a nice, fun bit of writing. It has to be really lived through and central to the agency. And I don't think agency founders and owners always think that. They think that somebody like us can come along, just do a little session, a workshop, and make them sound great. But really, we have to transform how the agency works sometimes for it to really be effective.
Yeah. How do you approach positioning strategies for your clients? Can you briefly describe the process you apply at Treacle?
We have our own agency proposition canvas, and it's really just 8 boxes that logically flow through the decisions that need to be made as an agency. So as a quick spin, it starts with your target clients. Everything should start with who you want to work with, who is the fun people who have the right money that build the reputation of your agency. So that's the starting point. Then we look at what category you play in. Are you a design agency, a branding agency, a packaging agency? That's the category that you play in. And those two things combined, we think of as your market positioning, where you play in the market. Then, just like I said, the next bit is we do a lot of work of understanding the specific problems your clients have. And once we've honed in on one that we think is the right problem, we help the agency build a really robust and unique solution to that. So that solution could be a process, it could be a piece of software, it could be a delivery model, it could be a framework or a new department or a cultural insight or a point of view about their category. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be one thing in particular, but it has to be almost ownable IP. It has to be something they could almost trademark. It has to be their way of doing something. Then what we do after we've got that is we look at the value that creates for the client, commercially, emotionally, personally. And then we make sure that the agency has the credibility and the proof points to live that all through. And then there's a couple of quick check validation bits we do. So we check that it's not being done by any competitors.
Yeah.
And then we hone in on the reason that competitors can't solve that problem as well as you. And overall, that gives you a unique reason to be chosen in the market. So it's quite a systematic way of approaching positioning and messaging. It's partly about how the brand feels and sounds, but it's quite strategic in the way that we think, how can we be different and how can we give ourselves just that little bit of edge over our competitors?
What are the key elements that make a narrative compelling and engaging for agency clients?
To me, there's 3.5 parts to that. Every story needs to have some kind of conflict or change, a problem, an issue, some tension. So we start with that problem piece, honing in on what's changing in the industry, what's challenging for clients. And that sets up a kind of, they call it a story arc. You want to know how that gets solved. As humans, we want to naturally find that out. So there's the problem part. Then we build the solution part. So this is the unique thing that the agency does. Like I said, the process, principle, framework, software, whatever it is, there needs to be a solution that shows they've got a way to solve that problem. Then the half part is that solution really needs to have detail. It can't just be a phrase or a word. It needs to have depth and detail to make it come to life so that the client will believe that there's a process here that they can buy into. And then the last part is the outcome, the value it creates, whether that's on a business level, whether that's on a personal level. It will always have some kind of big outcome that the clients find really desirable. So we have to tell them that story of how their life is going to be improved by this solution. So those 3.5 things, 4 things combined, and you can swap the order of them, but those 4 things are the cornerstones of a great agency narrative.
How can agencies effectively use that storytelling? Where is it used usually? On their website, during sales call?
All of those. So when the narrative works really well, it's repeated in multiple places, multiple times, which can feel a bit uncomfortable for agencies because we like novelty, we like new things, we always want to be reinventing the wheel. We get very easily distracted by shiny objects. But that story can be as small as 2 or 3 sentences. It can be as long as 2 or 3 pages. At the homepage is a great example. A lot of agencies just only ever sell the outcome. They don't really build out the rest of the narrative. So the homepage is a great place to build out that narrative. Most people are going to land on an agency's homepage and read that. So that's a great place. But that whole structure of the story works really well in pitch decks, on sales calls. It's just a way that frames a problem, names a solution, and claims the outcome. That principle can be used in proposals, pitch decks, sales meetings, website copy. It should be a variation of the same thing in all of those places to keep that consistency and to reinforce that story so people associate it with the agency.
What are some common pitfalls agencies should avoid when crafting their narrative positioning?
There's a few things that we've come across. The first, I suppose, is defining a target client. A lot of agencies will want to keep the door very open, and that makes sense. But it can be really difficult when you're trying to build this narrative if you don't have a very clear picture of the kind of person you would like to be working with. The story will just always feel a bit generic. We work with a lot of agencies that want to target ambitious brands or future-facing brands, but these are quite difficult to understand. So first, they need to be a bit more specific about the persona of the kind of client they're looking to win. So that's a good starting point. Other things that they do is they quite often fall in love with solutions that are not really that unique or are not really that desirable for clients. So I've seen agencies, create a process that is they trademark, but it really is just the same process as everybody else, or it's just called something slightly different, but it doesn't do anything different. Yeah, I think agencies can sometimes fall in love with their own ideas and be afraid to kill them when they're not strong enough. And I think generally just checking the narrative they're building is actually unique. That's one thing. And testing it with prospects as they're building it is always a great way to validate it and sense check it. So getting the new business or salespeople to start using some of the narrative as it's being built, and they get that feedback from real prospects, that the language they use, the concerns they have, the questions they ask, that could be really great to then build those answers back into the narrative. There's a shift towards narratives now. I think agencies are getting better at it slowly, but it's going to take some time.
Agencies with flat, dull, or one-dimensional positioning end up competing on price or speed. They are seen as an interchangeable one of many. If you are blending in, you are losing out.
Can you explain the concept of the 3D positioning model?
It's a way to score a positioning. We registered this as our own IP. So 3D positioning, it's 3 words all beginning with D. And it's a system for just sense checking that does this positioning or does this narrative actually, will it work? So the first is desirable. And that's really how valuable this is going to be for clients, the kind of clients you want to win. Is there a market for it? Are they hungry for it? So that desirable is the starting point. Then we have distinctive, which is this actually different from everybody else in our market? Can we own this as a world, as a narrative, as a positioning, or is it just a different way of saying exactly the same thing as everybody else? And then the last one is defensible, which really means, can we prove we can deliver? What we don't want is to just be making something up. And then when a client works with an agency, it's not really what they do at all. It has to be lived through. There should be eventually case studies, proof, testimonials, results, statistics, graphs, whatever they need to do. But there should be something that makes it feel very real and robust.
What is the dimension that you think it's harder to achieve?
Defensible is the hardest, because when an agency is going through this process and they're moving to a new positioning or with a new narrative, they won't always have all of the case studies straight away or all of the stats or proof. And sometimes that scares agencies. We'll get of saying, we can't be famous for this thing because we haven't built enough credibility. So we do a lot of time explaining that's okay, that's normal. This is pointing you in a direction that's just beyond your comfort zone. So defensible is the one they normally have to spend 3 to 6 months building up the credibility to live it through. That's normal. I don't want anybody to worry if they feel it's a bit of a jump. All good strategy should push you just beyond your comfort zone. Otherwise, it's just a briefing, not a strategy.
What are your top tips for design agencies looking to create a lasting impact with their copy?
Wow, that's a great question. So all good copy and messaging, it's only as good as the thinking behind it. We've seen lots of design agencies come to us and say, we just can't find any good copywriters. And we're going to send you some of the stuff they've written. And then when I look at the agency, hasn't got anything interesting to say. It starts with having a strategy. That's the easiest thing to make any copy good, is say something really exciting, unique, and valuable. But then in terms of messaging itself and copy itself, there are some just common mistakes people make and things that they could instantly improve. If you're an agency owner, if you open up your website right now, I could almost guarantee that 90% of your sentences will start with we or our team of this or that. And just a simple exercise is to rewrite your whole website to only use you and your. So you're speaking to somebody, not speaking about yourself. I'm sure everybody's been to a party and you're having a cocktail and a chat or a beer at the bar, and you find that one person that only talks about themselves. It's quite hard to listen to after 5 minutes. And it's the same with agencies. They're very happy to talk about themselves, but they're not so good at talking about somebody else. So just that simple from we to you exercise can be really valuable. Beyond that is to have the strategy, to tell the story, to not be afraid to talk about specific problems that clients have and how you solve them. It doesn't always have to be positive all the time. Because agencies, sometimes we feel it all has to be perfect. Every case study was perfect. Everything was flawless. We never messed anything up. The clients only ever loved us. We've never had a bad client. I think it's okay to be a bit more honest and open, talk about problems, issues. It's more endearing, it's more realistic, it's more human to do that. So I think having that kind of approach is good. And then just in terms of style and tone, every agency will have their own way of talking, but to try and build a system of language and words and voice and vocabulary that you can be known for, so people can sense your style of writing. So trying to keep one consistent voice through all of your copy and messaging is ideal. But I understand that's hard in reality because you've got different people writing different things. But in an ideal world, you would really build that system and stick to it for at least 12 months.
Talking about vulnerability, what's a copywriting lesson that you learned the hard way?
So many good questions. I'm impressed. Again, and I'm going to make the same point twice. I'm sorry. The mistake I made was thinking that if things sounded cool, that would be enough. And it's enough to get an agency to sign it off and approve it because it sounds cool, but it won't do the thing they need it to do. So for a few years early on when I started, I used to love things that rhymed, that had alliteration. So they started with the same sound all the time. They had lists of 3. I thought it was really cool and branded, but really it didn't do anything to help win work for that agency. It just sounded a bit cool. I learned very quickly that, and I used to have to write hundreds and hundreds of versions of things until I eventually found the right rhyme or the right pun or the right thing. And it used to be really soul destroying. So I think once I realized that if I could get them to commit to a strategy, it was much quicker to get to a really good end product. That's, again, I know it's the same point, but once you nail the strategy, the messaging, the copywriting is much easier and wastes less time.
What's the positioning tactic that has worked for you time and time again, your secret weapon?
Ooh, I wish I had one secret weapon. That would make my life really easy. The annoying thing is we have to build a secret weapon that's totally different every time. So there is no one positioning tactic or strategy that always works for every agency. I can tell you some shifts that are happening that seem to be common trends across agencies. Mm-hmm. So right now there's a big move to agencies wanting to sell more strategy, be much more consultative with clients, because agencies everywhere feel the pressure of AI from below and needing to add that extra human value for their clients. There's a big shift towards agencies wanting to sell their thinking much more than they're doing. So that's a big positioning move lots of our agencies are making at the minute. So that's definitely a theme, but it doesn't apply to every single agency.
What about AI in your field, in copy? What do you think about it?
We're not using AI for copy, but what we are using it for is much quicker and easier research and insights in the strategy phase. Having played with it now for a few months in terms of actual copywriting messaging, I'm not worried about my job just yet. I'm sure it will get to a point where it is, and then maybe agencies out there are starting to use it for the more functional bits of copy they need. That feels absolutely fine. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. But I think that big message, that big strategic reason to be chosen, that will need lots of deep soul searching. And I'm not sure the robots have the souls to search yet.
Yeah. What's the worst positioning crime you have ever seen or perhaps committed?
Oh, well, I'm sorry if I've ever committed it. Maybe we have. We're definitely not perfect. I think for me, there's 2 things that I really struggle with is just a very general and generic proposition. So this one used to be the one that I hated. And it goes, we deliver business results that create impact, or we create solutions that deliver growth. And there's nothing really wrong with them apart from that's what every agency or even every business is designed to do. It says almost nothing. It doesn't mean anything. On the other side, anything else that we've done that's not great? I think, again, choosing style over substance in the early days where we just wanted to sound cool. Looking back, I'm sorry to the people who we made sound very cool but didn't have anything good to say. That's my fault. No refunds, though, just to let everybody know, no refunds.
Roland, I have a proposal for you. Let's play a game.
Oh,
As you are aware, a table tennis table is often found in creative studios. Here, how it works, I will ask you a series of quick questions, and you will need to choose between two concepts. If you'd like, you can also explain your reasoning behind each choice. Are you ready for Brandersman table tennis?
let's go.
I am a copywriter or I am a positioning coach.
Positioning coach.
Creative strategy or strategic creativity.
Strategic creativity.
A big established agency or a boutique agency.
Boutique. I like working with founders who live and breathe their agency and are willing to take the risks. I enjoy that journey of pushing them to new places they didn't think the agency was going to go. Big agencies are great, but it's like turning a ship. It takes a long time, it's slow, and there's lots of stakeholders, and it can lose momentum. So I like moving fast and breaking things. So boutique for me.
Conceptualization or execution.
Conceptualization.
Distinctive or desirable.
That's like choosing between my children. Desirable.
Remote work or face-to-face work.
Remote for me. I like remote because I'm an introvert, but I need the face-to-face just to repower me, re-energize my batteries every so often.
A collaboration with another consultant that you would like to do.
Oh, that's a good question. I like to see the words and the strategy come to life visually. So I really enjoy collaborating with designers and developers. So people who intrinsically understand brands and can interpret everything that we've been doing into a visual language that goes with it. I love that process. And when it all goes live and I see it all, that's a real moment that makes me smile. So I'm always happy to work with visual people.
And finally, great copywriters are born or great copywriters are made?
Born, absolutely. I've hired and fired and worked with lots of writers now over the years, but I can feel the ones that have it in their blood versus the ones who learnt it in schools. I'm always on the side of the natural brand writers. So born, yeah.
Looking ahead, what trends do you anticipate shaping the future of our industry?
It's a funny time in agency land, and everything seems to be thrown out a little bit. I'm seeing mid to big agencies consolidate and acquire each other. But then at the smaller end, I'm seeing the smaller agencies become even smaller and just start collaborating and networking with each other, so that there's almost just little studios of people who connect up for projects. So it's the messy middle that's going to be the hardest place to play for the next few years for agencies. So yeah, the agencies are going to start taking this work a bit more seriously if they want to stay alive and compete over the next few years.
Where do you feel you have a different opinion than most of your colleagues?
For a few years now, niching has been the big talk. That's definitely a play for early stage agencies. Niching probably makes sense. But as a move away from that, and I do wonder if there's going to be a move away from systemizing everything. So this is something I see a lot of specialists at the minute building canvases, just like us. I'm not saying we're exempt from this, trying to prove that there's a process, a framework, that everything is repeatable and easily made, and there's a machine that makes the magic. There's going to be a change back to almost the old era of agencies, big egos, big characters, messy creative processes, people admitting that it's moments of inspiration, not a big machine that churns out the ideas. So yeah, there's going to be wild ideas, drunken nights, moments of breakthroughs in the pub somewhere. I think it'll all move away from feeling very systemized and processed.
Interesting, because it's the antidote to AI.
Yes, that's a really good point. Because AI eventually may well do part of what we do, which is bring that structure and process and rigor and probably do it much better than us. But will it come up with a big genius idea at 2 a.m. in the morning? Probably not. Maybe that will always be human. So that's maybe where it will shift to. And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. If you could just take a pill and learn any subject, anything, what would it be?
Human psychology. If you know people, the world is yours. And I'm interested in the subconscious and how we can tap into it, not for evil, for good, but to, how people work and their brains work. That's something I love.
What is something that people don't know about you that if they did, they would be surprised?
I've never worked in an agency. I never did my 20 years of junior to midweight to senior, like lots of the people that I work with. So maybe I'm a complete fraud.
What is the most important thing on your to-do list for your professional life? What's your next adventure?
I have written a book. It's basically a summary of all the thinking and processes and ideologies that I've amassed over the years of doing this. So it's currently, the working title is Why You? And it's all about how an agency can be the obvious choice for the kind of clients they want to win. It's at about 30 or 40,000 words. And hopefully some of them make sense.
Roland, thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey into the world of positioning and messaging for agencies. Your valuable insights are truly distinctive, desirable, and defensible. Cheers. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Your questions are brilliant. It's made me think about my whole life in a good way,
I hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. You can check the episode notes for all the relevant links. I also invite you to follow me on Instagram and on my website, branderman.design. Follow the podcast in your favorite app so you don't miss the next episode of Branderman, the podcast where we try to uncover how to make a positive impact on consumers, the market, and society through package design.